Hi, welcome to Box on the Box, Rock and Celluloid, Botbrack for short. I'm Edward Box. So, big anniversary this week, October 5th, 60 years since the release of the first James Bond film, Doctor No. So, I've been doing a few things celebrating that this week, some Bond related things. And I thought it was time I looked at who could or should be the next James Bond. So, I should preface this by saying I'm not sure who should be the next James Bond. I'm not sure I like. But there's a loads more actors than you maybe realise who come up in the mix or the discussion. As someone said online, I think it was Calvin Dyson, if you go on his site, the second someone turns up in a tuxedo who's the right age to be the next James Bond, they usually get linked with it. Some people have sort of courted it, like Tom Hiddleston a bit. Other people have had fun with it, Idris Elba. But we'll go through them all. I've just got this list here. It's not in any kind of order. It includes actors of different ethnicities. I think we've got to sort of get past that point. There's a good chance the next James Bond actor could be an actor of colour, different heritage. I don't think that matters as long, especially in the modern era, as long as they're kind of believable as James Bond. The key thing with who plays Bond is it's not what we think, it's what happens when they do that famous screen test and they have to do the line from Russia with Love where Tatiana says she thinks her lips are too small, and Connery says, "Oh, they're just the right size for me." There's other things I have to do, but something magic happens. I think if we look at the castings of James Bond, Connery was cast. Connery was a successful jobbing actor. He had a perfectly decent career before Bond. Terence Young took him under his wing. They got his eyebrows done, got his hair cut, got him down the gym, got him down Savile Row. And pretty much with the first film, and certainly by the third film, he'd created the cinematic template for what James Bond needs to be. And any actor who takes up that mantle is always touching base with that. Then there was Lazenby, a mistake in terms that he couldn't act really, he wasn't an actor but looked good. But what Lazenby did, he was kind of like a sacrificial lamb. He showed that James Bond could be played by another actor and have modicum of success. Connery came back, then more. More like Pierce Brosnan, after him was a safe pair of hands. He was known through TV and limited film work. He was known to audiences. He'd been linked with the role. So when he came in, it kind of felt like he'd been James Bond already. Dalton, because Brosnan didn't take it, came in, was probably didn't quite have the humour coming from Moore. Kind of played it more seriously. He was out of his time. He was ahead of his time with his take on a more Fleming-inspired Bond. Also, I mentioned Brosnan, who was like a kind of compendium of all the four Bonds that come before. And of course, Daniel Craig. And Daniel Craig's a good example of this screen test thing. Barbara Broccoli wanted to go in a different direction. She saw something in Daniel Craig. He did the screen test. When people heard, the cast Daniel Craig, it's blonde Bond and he's only 5'10". The media went into overdrive because he didn't fit people's idea of what James Bond should be. But obviously the producers saw something. And when the film came out, he was maybe the best James Bond. Well, that's always up for debate, and obviously Donal will be doing a thing on that. So let's go through my list here. I'm going to get a pen. I'll have to tick this off as I go. So I've got this in a pretty random order. So I'm not starting with necessarily the main choice. A name who's popped up is Robert Pattinson. Basically, he plays a kind of James Bondy, David Niven type in Tenet. He's 36, he's 6'1". I think he's a really good actor. Could he be James Bond? Yes, but he's Batman. He's just signed up for Batman. The Batman film's really big. So it's just they're not going to go for him. He's too big. But he ticks quite a lot of boxes. He's maybe a little fey. Next one is, now I hadn't thought of this guy. And I'm kind of like, he's probably a bit too posh for me, but he is good. It's Josh O'Connor from The Crown who plays Prince Charles. He's 32, 6'1". He's a very good actor, very believable. And I think there's that argument, we can say, someone doesn't look like Bond or we don't like the way they speak or whatever. But the point is a really good actor will find a way into the role. I don't think he's got the right look. On one of the sites was on, I think it's Calvin Dyson again, he suggested if you want to do kind of more really Ian Fleming kind of Bond, maybe if you want to do something set in the past, he could be really good. So I don't think he'll be Bond, but an interesting kind of, putting a bit of wild card out there. Then next one I've got, now this guy's kind of flagged up on other sites and people may not have thought of him. but it's Oliver Jackson Cohen. So Oliver Jackson Cohen is a British actor, but he does a lot of work in America. He's appeared in Haunting of Hill House. The other one, based on Turn of the Screw. Now he plays an American in the Haunting of Hill House. He's got a heroin addiction. He plays the Scottish sort of villain, Peter Quint. In the other thing, which I can't remember the name of, sorry. But the role where I saw him is a little supporting role in the Olivia Colman film, the one with Dakota Johnson. And again, I forgot the title of it, but it's on Netflix. So Olivia Colman got an Oscar nomination, but he's in that, and he only has a couple of scenes, but he's quite dangerous looking guy. Now he's 34 and he's 6'3". So my feeling is the earliest you'll get a Bond film is 2025 when it comes out. They may go for 2027 because that's the 65th anniversary, and James Bond gets his pension. Well, depending on what your pension rules are. But check out this guy. Have a look at him online. He's pretty kind of in the Craig mould. But he's got an edge to him, and he's a unit. Next one, Taron Egerton. Now, I like Taron Egerton. I think he's got a light touch. He's funny. He's 31. He's the right age. Problem is, he's already playing a kind of James Bond parody in Kingsman. Incidentally, I think Matthew Vaughn would make a really good James Bond film, but probably the fact he hasn't made a James Bond film or got to do one is why he's done Kingsman. That's the director of those films. But Egerton's good, but maybe he's a bit too big. He's been Elton John. He's eggsy, isn't he? But the other thing is he's 5'9". Daniel Craig was 5'10". He's 5'10". He was 5'10". He is 5'10". But I think there's a limit. I think the James Bond actor needs to fill the frame. They got away with it, Craig, but a kind of Roger Moore, Sean Connery, 6'1", 6'2", Lazenby, 6'1", Brosnan, 6'1", Dalton, is maybe something they could look to. So I don't think Taron's going to go for it, but or get it. But he's probably a bit too well known. Next up, first actor of colour, John Boyega. Obviously in the Star Wars films, but that's kind of tailed off. Seems to have disappeared a bit. Did some cool stuff with Steve McQueen. Very good in Catherine Bigelow's Detroit. My problem with John Boyega is 29, perfect age, so in 3 years' time, 2025, he could be 32, 34 in 2027. Same age sort of Connery. Really good, but he's 5'9". I just think he's a bit thick set in his sort of build. You can't imagine him moving in a lithe fashion, although, Craig kind of moved in a kind of quite blunt way. So I don't think they'll go for him. Next up, George McKay, 29, 6 foot, same age. Now, George McKay is a very good actor as well. I forget the name of the thing set in the fishing community, which is Miserable, which is a breakout film, which is great. A lot of the diversity, very good in 1918. I just don't think he's got quite the right look. He's got the acting chops, there's no doubt about that. But I just don't know if he's Bonding enough. So, next up, Daniel Kaluuya. Okay, another actor, great Black British actor, 32 years old, won Oscar-winning actor, again, pretty well known, but hasn't got a signature role, hasn't got a franchise. Again, 5'9", not got the height we're after. I don't know, maybe just a bit sort of thick set. I just don't see him as Bondish, but he's a bloody good actor. And he's the kind of actor, well, if I'm going to be this character, he would find a way in. You get two types of Bond actor. You get your Roger Moore, where the role's tailored to his persona. Pierce Brosnan, where he kind of looks like Bond and think of him as Bond. Then you get someone like Daniel Craig, who people don't immediately think as Bond, but kind of creates and turns himself into Bond. Sort of kind of like what Connery did. But difference being, you got 3-4 dimensions to the Daniel Craig Bond. There's only really 2 to Sean. Next up, Michael Fassbender. I think Fassbender would have been brilliant. When he plays the English officer in Inglourious Basterds, speaks in German. There's that brilliant scene in X-Men First Class where he goes around Nazi hunting, and he's brilliant, he's ruthless and charming. I think the problem for him is, he is big, but he's not tied to a franchise, and the X-Men thing's finished. But he's 44. If you get a Bond film out in 2025, he's going to be 47. Now, I have been thinking that you could just have an actor doing 3 Bonds. There's this thing on the actor playing James Bond's got to do 4 Bonds, 5 Bonds, 6, 7. He's got to do it for 15 years, like Daniel. But I just think, you could have an actor just doing, 3. Even if he did that, though, he'd still be getting into his mid-50s. So I don't think he's going to make it, but I think he would have been brilliant. I liked him. Next up, a guy who is talked about a lot with this due to his role in Bodyguard, the British TV show, and Game of Thrones, Eternals, and that's Richard Madden. He's 35, so he's the right age. He'll be 38 when the film came out, 40. And he's 5'10". So he's in the Daniel Craig height. I just don't like Madden. I just find him a bit sort of stiff. I just don't tell him. He's not sleek enough for me. I mean, he could only call Daniel Craig sleek because he's got Sid James ears, but I just don't totally buy Madden. You know, he put on the tuxedo in Bodyguard and did some Bondish stuff, but I never bought him as Bond. I don't think he's that great an actor, if I'm honest, but that's fine. I should just say that, like, you know, my threshold limit on this is if an actor's 40 at the moment or 39, by the time they do a film, they're in the Brosnan territory or Dalton. So they're limited the number of films they can do. Yeah. If they're 31, 32, 29, they might not be quite aged enough. So the perfect Bond age is kind of, if the actor's now 35, 33, 34, that's, by the time the film comes out, they'll just be right. Next up, Dan Stevens. Again, an actor I think is really good. If you see a film called The Guest, he can do the action. If you see Eurovision, the comedy film, he can do the comedy. He's in Downton, he's got the Englishness. I think he's a great guy. I think he's got quite a lot of range. He's 6 foot, he's 38, so he's just in our threshold years. I don't know, I just think he's a bit quirky, he's a bit mad-eyed. I'd actually quite like him as a Bond villain. Maybe an agent gone awry, because he's got that look with his crazy eyes. He'd also make a really good Doctor Who. So Dan's not going to make the cut, but I like Dan. Next up, now this guy's interesting, because I think he's a really good actor, and if you wanted to play Bond really kind of edgy and maybe do an origin story where you're going back to him being recruited and being trained on his to be a 00. One of my ideas for plot is the next James Bond goes right back to M is given a brief to start a new division of agents, 00s, and, you know, you've got several involved maybe, I don't know, and one of them's James Bond, and it's how. And he's maybe not like immediately the best one, but it's Jack O'Connell I'm talking about. He's 31, but he's only 5'7", which is pretty short. But then again, he's an imposing figure. You know, he is really rough. You know, he's from a rough background, and that's quite a good thing for Bond. Connery was, simply for the reason, you know, James Bond should be a bit chippy. I don't want him being too privileged, the actor who plays him. So I don't know about Jack O'Connell. I think his height lets him down. He'll be imposing, but not in the physical way I want. Next up, Regé-Jean Page. Whenever someone appears in Bridgerton, usually they get linked with it. But Regé-Jean Page was first out of the box. Another actor, person of colour, a bit too pretty for me. Looks really good looking guy, age 31, perfect age, 5'11". So fitting in with our remit there. Could definitely handle himself in a kind of light way. You know, a lot of who they cast depends which way they want to go. Do they want to kind of go more Roger Moore? Do they want to bring back lightness, individual missions? Do they want to keep with the Craig idea? Do they want to make out that Craig survived with a different actor in the role and keep the Craig timeline? Remember in the Only Live Twice book, they think he's dead, but he's washed out at sea at the end, and he survives and has amnesia. So Regé-Jean Page, yeah, it was kind of hot for a moment, but I think when you look at it, I'm not sure he's quite the right look. Nicholas Hoult, 32 years of age, perfect age, 6'2". Really kind of versatile actor, does lots of things. I don't know, like, tell you what his Bond would be like. This is weird, he's a bit fair-skinned for me. I kind of like the Bonds usually have a bit of a tan, and you know, and he's got those kind of posh front teeth. Sorry, I think he has been privately educated. So his background, you know, it's not posh, but he's from a little more privilege. And how do you tap into that kind of chippiness that James Bond feels where, you know, he's from landed gentry, but he's not as well thought of at school as the other lot. So he's got that chip, which Daniel Craig brought out really well. I think Nicholas Hoult is a contender. He ticks a lot of boxes. He's a known actor, but not for any one thing. He's not linked to a franchise. He's the right age. He's the right height. He would get in shape. the bloke would be good. Next up, Luke Evans, age 42, 6 foot. If Luke Evans was younger, I think he would have been in with a good shot. But 42, by the time the film's out, it's going to be 45, and it's just going to be that bit too long. If Daniel had quit after Spectre, maybe he'd been in with a chance. Or if Daniel had quit on Skyfall, which would have kind of been awesome, because Daniel, Spectre's okay. I like No Time to Die, but Skyfall's a bit of a classic. But then you would be looking at, he would have been a really good shot, but I think his ship's sailed. Next one, Sam Hugan, 41, 6'2". So again, he's in that threshold. Does action in Outlander. Seen him in that action film on Sky, which is a bit naff, but he's quite a lot of fun in it. He's a likeable guy. I'm just moving that, so that's my pen, my ticking pen. I like him. He'd obviously love to be Bond, 6'2". Okay, if you cast him, if they wanted to go and he was the guy, he'd be 44 when 2025, 43 when the film's shot. He'd be looking. I think now you can't do a Bond film every 2 years. It's going to be and they should aim for every 3 years. When he gets 4 or 5 years, it gets annoying. So theoretically, he could get 3 films and then be 50. I don't feel we need to have the same James Bond for ages. But I just think they'll go for someone younger. Next up, Jack Lowden, young British actor with fair hair, taller than you think, 6'1", 31 years old, ticks those boxes. If you want to watch him, check him out in Caliber, really good film on Netflix. He's just played Wilfred Owen in a thing called Siegfried Sassoon in a film. He's in something else I've seen, I can't remember. Again, I don't know if he's got the right look, but I think he's a good actor. I think he'll be considered. I would be surprised if he doesn't test, because he ticks a lot of boxes. Next guy is a big contender, I think. If you want to go, I initially thought, it'd be a Brosnan type, but again, I was watching Calvin Dyson's site, which go on there, it's a brilliant Bond site, much better than anything I can do. He said he could be more of a kind of Dalton type, and I would say, he could be a more Dalton type with a bit of Connery, a bit of Brosnan in the mix. It's Aidan Turner. He's 38 and he's 5'11", so not quite as tall as you think. Great track record in Poldark. Women love him. Put on the Tux with Agatha Christie fingers in. Been in The Hobbit. Also in the series Leonardo. On, I forget, Pick TV or something. But basically, again, he ticks a lot of boxes. He's Irish, but does a great British accent. Would definitely bring a lot to it. He's right on that threshold. If it come out to 2025, he'll be sort of Brosnan age, Dalton age. So he's a guy you'd be pushed to get 5 films out of him. You might get 4. Next one, no one's mentioned this guy. Is another British actor of mixed heritage. I think he is. It's Kingsley Ben-Adir. So Kingsley Ben-Adir is in Silent Witness. He's in some other TV shows, but the main role he got was as Malcolm X in One Night in Miami. I've seen some pictures of him. He's 5'11", but he's kind of slim. He's kind of lithe. And I can imagine the next James Bond, the movement, if you go for the kind of big, bulked-up Craig thing, it might be more interesting to go for a sort of leaner, kind of more Bruce Lee physique, but taller. I've seen some pictures of him in a suit, and he looks really cool. He's got a presence. No one's kind of thought of him, but I think I've seen him interviewed. I quite like his look. He could have something. So he's a kind of wild card entry. Next one, I haven't got his height. He's an actor, gets mentioned all the time, but I don't think he's going to get James Bond because he's 44, he's Mad Max, and he's in the what's the film called? Venom films. Tom Hardy. Tom Hardy's he's too established to be Bond. There's no doubt he'd be a really good James Bond. Women love him. He beat people up. He's a really good actor. Cast him now, he'd be 47. Now, I know Roger was 45 when he was cast. He'd be 46, 47 by the time the film comes out. You just wouldn't get that mileage out of him. I think the other thing with Roger is he looks a bit younger as well, but Tom looks young. And that's the same argument with the next guy who's been pushed for ages as to be classed as the first Black Bond, and that's Idris Elba. I've got mixed feelings on Idris. I think when he was Stringer Bell, imagine you wanted to cast James Bond then. And they're like, Jip, we're going for a black guy. And we think Idris is, American because he's so believable as Stringer Bell, but he turns out he's British. He's fucking built like a unit. he fucking kicks ass, and people are like, wow. I just think since then he's kind of been in a lot of stuff. I don't think Luther is his best bit of acting. You know, he can blow hot and cold as an actor. And he's great height. I'm imagining Idris Elba's well over 6 foot. I think the other problem is he's 49. Now, he didn't look 49, but you're just not going to get a number of films. But someone put in the notes for, it was in Calvin Dyson's thread on this very thing, that Idris Elba, what about casting him as M? And I think that's a fucking great idea. So if you cast Idris as M, he'll be older than the person playing Bond, in theory, quite a bit. He will have the moral authority, but he could bring some chippiness, because obviously Idris is a black guy. For a black guy to become M, you know, he's going to have taken loads of shit or had to like kind of played the game in a way he didn't want. And you could have some really interesting dynamics between the kind of little chip that Bond has and the potentially big chip that M could actually have. The other actor I would quite like to see M, and he's played that kind of character, is Tom Hollander, an actor I love, and he played in Ipcress File recently. And he'd make a really good M. But what about that Idris Elba as M? By the time the film's cast, you know, in his early 50s, you can imagine he's had his time as an agent, he's got the kind of build and everything to make that believable. I think that's, the person who made that call, I think it's a fucking great idea. Next up, James Norton, again, an actor who's linked with her a lot. Right age, 36, he's 6'1". Good actor, really good in Happy Valley, really good playing a journalist about the Ukrainian famine of the 1930s. Happy Valley, he plays an Irish guy with terminal disease in a film, I forget the name of it, and he has to find a foster parent for his son. Really good. And then he was in this thing, McMafia, where he played a guy with Russian heritage, and he wore a tux a lot, and he got the usual thing, he's got to be James Bond. I don't know, it's just something about his Lego hair. To me, he looks like Dermot O'Leary. Now, Dermot O'Leary looks pretty good, but there's just something a bit Lego about his hair, and I don't know, I don't buy. I know he's a good actor, and he can act his way into it, but I don't buy his look. Next guy is one of my top choices, and he's been mentioned. I think there's a couple of caveats. First positive, he's 31. Second, he's 6'2". Third positive, he's proved himself in a lot of films. He's also Oscar nominated, but he's not associated with a big franchise like the next guy we're coming to. Okay, he's an actor colour, he's got Indian heritage, it's Dev Patel, but I think he'd work as Bond. But here's a weird one. I think he looks best with longer hair and a beard. So when he has his beard off, I don't know, it kind of cleans him up too much. And I know James Bond's got a clean look, but whenever I see Dev Patel with a beard in a tux, I just think he looks something great. Quite sort of slender build, but he could bulk up, but have that kind of look, body look I'm thinking of. Apparently he sort of said he doesn't want to be the sort of token actor of colour to be cast, and understand that. But sometimes the guy doesn't want it. Could be, you know, the guy gets it. He's in a film, I'm sorry I keep forgetting the name of it. It's a Sky Cinema one where he plays an assassin, kind of low-key, pretty good. And he's also very, very good in another Sky Cinema one about the hotel terrorist attack in Mumbai, Hotel Mumbai. Really, that's Sky Cinema films are shit, but the Hotel Mumbai's top. But Dev Patel is one of my top choices. Next up is a guy who people think is born to play Bond. He missed out in 2006. It's Henry Cavill. 38, he's the right age. He'll be 41 when it comes. You'll get 3-4 films out of him. Alec Baldwin, he's 6'1". He's built like a unit. Fucking amazing in the fight scene in Mission Impossible. Good as the villain in that. Yeah, he's Superman, and there's the problem. He's Superman. But they might decide, look, we just need a safe pair of hands because Daniel was so big. Let's get Henry. Obviously, he did a trial run in The Men from U.N.C.L.E., but that film wasn't a hit. I think his acting's got better. He's got better with the media. He was quite shy when he came out. I think he's actually suffers from anxiety a bit, I've heard. Obviously, The Witcher on Netflix. You know, Roger was the same. I think if they're having trouble and they're testing people, it's not quite happening, they may go, let's get Henry Cavill in, and they need to knock out a film every 3 years when he's 41. 42, when he's 45, when he's 48, and you might get a fourth when he's 51. And if he's still looking really good, maybe you can do a fifth one. But you kind of have these big gaps, those two bigger gaps. Well, yeah, Daniel had two bigger gaps, didn't he? Skyfall, and then even No Time to Die would have been a big gap if it wasn't for a pandemic. Next up, a guy at one point, yeah, he was in the mix, is Tom Hiddleston, 6'2", he's 40. To me, he's kind of too sort of thin faced, and I don't know, it's, when he played the guy in The Night Manager, he's too kind of corrupt. His low-key character kind of taps into the kind of corruption within him, I think. But again, he's 40. By the time it's cast, there's no point in going for Hiddleston when someone like a Cavill's a safer bet. He kind of put himself about a bit, and he did that Taylor Swift thing, and Next up is Tom Ellis. He's 43. He's 6'3". Now I don't know. I've written this guy down. I can't remember what he looks like. I'm going to discount him because he's 6'3" and he's 40. Not because he's 6'3", because he's 43. Then you've got Tom Holland, the youngest actor in this list. He's 25. He's 5'8". He's too short. He's 25. He's a bit too young, but more to the point, he's Spider-Man. Tom Holland's recently become one of our biggest exports, if not our biggest export in film, because the Spider-Man film was a massive hit and was predominantly built around him. But then he did Uncharted. It goes $400 million, pretty much on the back of him, not so much Mark Wahlberg. So I just think that's out of the question. And then you've got Theo James, 6 foot. He's 37 years old. He's in a Time Traveler's Wife. He's in the Hunger Games. Now, he ticks a lot of boxes there. This guy, again, could be a contender. I'm not totally massive on his look, but he's the right age, thereabouts. Be nice. It'd be nice if someone was 35, 34. The next guy is. Then you've got that potential for longer if you want to do that. So Theo James is he's maybe a more solid bet, and he might win a better chance than you think. Henry Golding. Again, I was watching Calvin Dyson's channel, and he pointed out that he does like comedy well. So if you wanted to kind of lightness in there, a bit of Roger, I think Golding would do really well. He's likeable, but he's kind of done some edgier stuff, like in Guy Ritchie film, The Gentleman. He's in Last Christmas, which is a pretty naff rom-com. Apparently the Snake has some shit. Crazy Rich Asians, I didn't really like that film, but Golding was okay. He's of Malaysian descent, I think, English-Malaysian. That obviously Bond's big in Asian markets anyway, South Asian markets, but this would go even one further. So there's actually commercial value in this. I quite like Golding. 34 years old. He'll be 37 when the film comes out. If it's 25, 39, if it's 2027. He's in a really good shot on this. But he's lighter. Yeah. Next up, again, I didn't consider this guy, and I think he's a bloody great actor. I think he's 5'8". He's too short. He's too slight for me. He's 39. He's Riz Ahmed. Riz Ahmed's a great actor, already Oscar nominated. He's a lovely bloke. I'm sure if he was cast as James Bond, he would find a way to act his way into it. But I just think he's not quite right. If we're going for like actors of South Asian heritage, then I think Dev Patel's the better choice. I'm assuming I've got Riz's ethnicity right there. Apologies if I've got the wrong continent or anything. Next up is David Oyelowo. He's 45. He's 5'8". He has been linked with it. He looks good in the tux, but he's 45. He's just too old. Next guy is a wild card. So again, the connection is Haunting of Hill House. No, the other one. The Haunting of Bly Manor. Yes. He's also in Midnight Mass. Now, I'm not sure what else he's been in, but his name's Rahul Kohli. He's English actor, South Asian heritage. He's 35, he's 6'4". So this guy's the tallest guy in the thing. Now, when you see his parts he's done on TV, you wouldn't think it, but when you see the guy in the tux, with or without beard, he's good. He's got a good look. What his acting chops are like, I don't know, actually, he's bloody good in Midnight Mass. Less so in The Haunting of Bly Manor, but that's all a bit dodgy. Could him and Oliver Jackson Cohen, two, Mike Flanagan stalwarts who could get in there. Clive Standen, 41, 6'3". I didn't realise he's in Vikings. He's Ragnar's brother. He's also in the TV series of Taken. He's 6'3", yeah. Could look good. He's 41. He's in that sort of wrong age bracket. But he has been talked of. Then Jamie Dornan, Christian Grey. That franchise has kind of passed. So quite a safe pair of hands. 5'11" in the Daniel remit, age 40. Age isn't great. I really like Jamie Dornan as a person. He'd be good for the media. He's a good actor. I don't think they'll go for him. I'm sure I've missed someone off here, but I think I've been through about 33 of the buggers. So you may have some other ideas. My favourite choices, I think, Henry Golding, Dev Patel, Henry Cavill probably is a safe pair of hands. Aidan Turner as a kind of, quite safe. And probably Oliver Jackson Cohen maybe as the wild card. But they never cast who you think with James Bond sometimes. So let's see. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed that. James Bond, 60 years old this year. Remember to share and subscribe. And hopefully see you soon. Thanks so much.